Hey everyone, it's Enchanted, and I wanted to have a conversation about cancel culture and if it really exists. I also wanted to go a bit deeper and explain my opinion on why it may affect certain artists differently. So, in a general sense, do I think that cancel culture is real? Somewhat, but it mainly depends on the audience that an artist or celebrity has. I always hear fans complaining about why their favorite artists or celebrities are getting canceled while others are able to get away with almost no repercussions. I think what many people fail to realize is that you can only get canceled if your audience stops supporting you. Different audiences have different ethics and moral codes. For example, artists that dwell in the pop sphere tend to have way more liberal audiences. These fans tend to put a lot more weight on ethics compared to other genres. So, based off of the recent events in Palestine, we're seeing many artists and influencers within the pop landscape being called out for drinking Starbucks or eating McDonald's, and just not calling out injustices going on in Palestine. Pop fans hold celebrities to sometimes an extremely high and unrealistic standard, often calling out celebrities for not speaking up on certain topics. I also noticed that pop fans tend to be more likely to jump to conclusions compared to other genres. They're a lot more rapid and give celebrities less time to explain themselves. Comparing pop fans to rap fans or hop fans, it's night and day. So rap fans could really care less about what their artists do unless they dwell within the pop sphere like Nicki, Meg, or Drake. Most rappers can get away unscathed unless they do something, feminine or gay. That's what their audience cares about or draws a line on. Then we see, artists like Kodak, rappers like Kodak, that have been accused many times of sexual assault. And then we have other rappers that have killed people or have helped, ruin and stain communities. They still get praise from their fans. Hip hop fans, they don't really put a lot of emphasis on morals and ethics compared to pop fans. This is why it doesn't make sense when I see, sometimes Nicki fans trying to go tit for tat with people in the rap sphere. Like, I saw lots of Nicki fans complaining that Nicki was getting a lot more backlash for having her beef with Megan compared to, how Kendrick was getting a lot of praise for having his beef with Drake. And, both situations are a little different, first of all, but Kendrick is way more prominent in the rap space where they wouldn't be as overly critical compared to, Nicki Minaj. Kendrick, Lil Wayne, and Lil Uzi fans, they're not going to be outraged that their artists haven't spoken up about Palestine, or if they get caught, eating somewhere they're not supposed to, they just don't care. They don't rap fans just, they don't put a lot of ethics on who they support. Gender is the next biggest contributor, I would say, to cancel culture. I think most of us are aware that women in the music industry, they're often far more scrutinized compared to men. We've seen this time and time again that men can do some crazy and evil stuff in the industry and seem to get a slap on the wrist compared to women who can do small things, have small little situations here and there and lose their entire careers. I think one reason for this is that male celebrities tend to have stronger fan bases compared to women, especially, the heartthrobs. The next obvious reason would be misogyny. So, it's always really kind of sad because pop culture tends to be very female dominated. So, when we see female celebrities getting dragged, in many cases it's by female fans and the gays, but it makes sense because we all consume the same misogynistic media, which means that misogynistic views can and does affect women in the same ways that it affects men. Kind of like how there have been studies with showing that, black people have just as much prejudice against other black people, the same type of prejudice that white people have against black people because we all consume the same media that kind of enable these views. Again, these situations are a bit different, but I wanted to also talk about Lizzo and R. Kelly because Lizzo gets a lot of slander in general, just for making TikToks, but she's gotten into a lot of controversy recently because lots of her dancers have accused her of sexual assault and intimidation. Nothing has been proven, and many dancers' stories have been a bit spotty. But the internet couldn't wait to jump on Lizzo about these allegations. R. Kelly, on the other hand, who has been known to be a pedophile for many years, he married Aaliyah while she was underage, which is ridiculous. No one even talks about this. I still don't hear anybody really talking about that. But he's been able to get away for an extremely long time in the industry with these allegations, and still to this day, he has an extremely strong and loyal fan base. Diddy is another example of a man that's been able to make huge moves in the industry with little to no backlash, even though he's had huge allegations going on for decades. People are only recently starting to turn on him because of video evidence. Lizzo, and I'm not saying that she's innocent or guilty, but she's been dragged way more for far less and with way less evidence. I think another similar example would be the conversation around Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. So Kim Kardashian has been getting dragged for years because of, what she wears and being overly sexual. In more recent years, due to Kanye's critiques on Kim regarding, setting a good example for their children, she's received a lot more backlash. But if you guys recall, late last year, Kanye got caught getting head from his now wife in public in Italy. There were people talking about this on Twitter somewhat, but could you imagine if it was Kim Kardashian getting caught giving or receiving oral in public like that? Like, the internet would have been in a uproar with people calling her out of her name, telling her that, her kids need to be taken away. Kanye still gets praised pretty heavily for being a good father. And, I don't know Kanye, so I can't speak on, his relationship with his kids. But that little fiasco in Italy had little to no effect on how people view him as a whole. Like, people don't even bring that up anymore. The race of a celebrity also tends to play a role in cancel culture as well. I see time and time again that black artists are often receiving much more backlash and vitriol compared to white counterparts for doing the same or similar things. The best example as of late that I can come to would be, Beyonce and Taylor Swift's touring films and how they were received by audiences. Beyonce and Taylor Swift both released tour films late last year. Both of these films were global events and extremely successful, yet Beyonce seemed to be the only one receiving a ton of backlash for her film being shown in Israel. Like stated before, the Israel and Palestine conflicts have stirred up a lot of controversy within the pop, with pop audiences who tend to lean more liberal. Beyonce has been called out in literally like every other tweet when it was going on. And I was just confused because I'm like, didn't Taylor Swift release a film within that same month in Israel? Why is Beyonce the only one receiving backlash for this? I just couldn't understand. I'm like, I can understand holding an artist accountable, but it's interesting to see how people pick and choose. Also, people have to realize that, when it comes to big projects like this, there's many people and companies involved. So, artists do not have as much control as you may think, especially when there's second and third parties involved. Again, do I think cancel culture is real? I think I think the backlash received is only surface level. If you still have a strong fan base, any controversy will normally blow over within a week or two. We also have to remember that Twitter is not the general public. So oftentimes I think we make the mistake of forgetting that our feeds are curated towards us. We tend to see like-minded posts. These posts don't necessarily represent everyone. Most people aren't even aware of the huge discussions that go on within the Twitter landscape. For example, on my feed, with the Palestine conflict, it seems like 95% of the people involved are in support of Palestine. However, when you go out into the real world, you'll clearly see like it's 50-50. Like on social media, yeah, it's more people show their support to Palestine, but in real life, I mean, there are a ton of Israel supporters. So, that's important to keep in mind with cancel culture is like lots of times it's just noise on social media, but it doesn't necessarily translate to real life. So artists like DaBaby, who are infamous for being the face of cancel culture, were really already losing a lot of steam before their controversies even happened. So he was pretty mainstream and he did have hits on his own, but he never really had an extremely diehard fan base. And many of his numbers, especially in the later part of his career, were coming from pop fans due to that collab with Dua Lipa. So it's pretty clear that his numbers would drop significantly once he said those homophobic things. For celebrities that are running strong, cancel culture might derail their careers a bit, but if they have the Hollywood industry machine behind them, like they're set. You can't really shake them. Being blacklisted in the industry is far more worse than cancel culture. By the general public and Twitter. What are your guys' thoughts on this? What are some celebrities that you have seen, be legitimately canceled? One of the main things is like that I always think about is Chris Brown. You know, Chris Brown, if you were to be on Twitter, you'd think that he was the worst person ever, that nope, everybody hated him. But you go into real life, I mean, I have lots of coworkers that like Chris Brown. His concerts are always sold out. So it's just like we can see that time and time again. Twitter and cancel culture, it doesn't always translate into real life. I feel like, you know, if you have a solid foundation in the beginning, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have people that support you, you might not get looks from, you know, brands and things like that. That might be what you might lose a bit of. But after 2 or 3 weeks, everything always fades, and no, you know, the effects of cancel culture, it's everybody forgets about it. It's just like initial backlash. But what are your guys' thoughts on cancel culture? You know, what are some celebrities that you've seen or may have seen that you think have legitimately been canceled and ruined by cancel culture? I'd want to know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video.